Web development is definitely one of the hottest skills in today's market. Therefore, if you are able to get a good grasp of the required skills, you can surely fetch your dream job. So hey everyone, welcome back to a whole new exciting session from Edureka. My name is Fajiha, and in this session on how to become a web developer, we'll be discussing all that you need to know to master the field of web development. We'll start off our discussion with a small introduction to web development, followed by understanding who is a web developer based on the three types of web developers, that is front-end developers, back-end developers, and full-stack developers. Then we shall move on to see how to become a web developer and what are the technical skills and the non-technical skills that are required. In this session, we'll also be covering how to create your resume and how you can apply for jobs. So before we begin, just make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated with all the latest Edureka videos. Also, if you are interested in getting an online training certification in full-stack web development, check out the link given in the description box below. Okay, so without any further delays, let's move on. So what exactly is web development? As the word suggests, web development is a process of building and maintaining applications that run on the internet or on private networks like the intranet. Web development involves web designing, web content development, client-side or server-side development, network security configurations, etc. So who is a web developer? Professionals who create websites and web applications are known as web developers. These professionals use various methodologies such as Agile to create websites. The applications that were created earlier followed the traditional web applications model. Today, web applications are mostly single-page applications that are compatible both with desktops and mobiles. There are basically three types of web developers, that is, front-end developers, back-end developers, and full-stack developers. A front-end web developer is someone who implements web designs through programming languages like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Front-end developers work with the design and outlook of the website. If you head to any site, you can see the work of front-end developers in the navigation, layouts, and also the way the site looks different from your phone. Some of the common roles and responsibilities of front-end developers are manage complex details about projects that require analyzing design requirements, recommending technical solutions to make projects scalable, maintainable, and efficient. Interpret requirements and create project plans to meet schedule and quality goals. Work across teams to identify and solve problems. As a front-end developer, you will need to debug websites to fix mistakes in code and make sure they are error-free for network administrators and end users. You should be efficient with tools like a personal computer and a popular software such as word processor or notepad, programming language editors, and different browser setups to check website errors across platforms. You must have working knowledge of several programming languages and should be able to adapt to new versions of the software. Proficient in using Office applications and should have advanced knowledge in database and networks. Okay, so that was about a front-end developer. Now let's move on and see who is a back-end developer. Backend developers are responsible to work on what goes behind the scenes like databases. They create, write the code, and improve the server and the server-side applications, as well as databases. Backend developers study the industry trends, create or improve the backend processes and codes, and work with others to design a better program. Some of the responsibilities of a backend developer are to compile and analyze the data, processes, and codes, to troubleshoot problems and identify areas of improvement, collaborating with the front-end developers and other team members to establish objectives and design more functional, cohesive codes to enhance the user's experience, developing ideas for new programs, products, or features by monitoring industry developments and trends, recording data and reporting it to proper parties such as clients or leadership. Backend developers should involve in continuous education and training to remain current on best practices, learn new programming languages, and better assist other team members. They also should take lead on projects whenever required. Okay, so who is a full-stack web developer? A full-stack web developer is someone who has good understanding of how the web works at each and every level, including setup and configuring of Linux or Windows servers, coding server-side APIs, running the client side of the application by using JavaScript, operating and querying the databases, and structuring and designing the web page with CSS and JavaScript. Some of the common roles and responsibilities of a full stack developer are: they should be well acquainted with system infrastructure, including hardware and operating systems. Create and design front end by using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Build interactive UIs with the help of JavaScript frameworks such as React, Angular, Vue, Ember, etc. They should be able to code server-side APIs and backend by using programming languages like Python, Ruby, Java, PHP, and frameworks like Node.js. Manage and operate database management systems like MySQL, MongoDB, SQL, etc. Also, they should be well versed with project management tools and client coordination. Okay, now that you're aware of the three types of web developers, let's move on and see how to become a web developer. If you have a look at the current job listings for web developers, you will see that there's a clear and common pool of skills employers are looking for. Now, most of the time, people get confused about where to start from and what are the skills that they need to master for their preferred job role. The first step is to get a bachelor's degree in a relevant field. Once you have that, you can go ahead and focus on the skills that are required to become a web developer. Okay, so starting off with front-end developers' technical skills. There are different technical skills that you need to possess to become a front-end developer. Here, I'm going to list down the top 10 technical skills that are required to become a front-end developer. The first and foremost is HTML and CSS. HTML, or Hypertext Markup Language, is the most basic building block required for developing websites. CSS, or Cascading Style Sheets, is a language used for presenting the document that you create with HTML. HTML is used for creating the foundation of your page. CSS, on the other hand, is used to create the layout of the page, the color, font, style, etc. Both these languages are absolutely essential to become a front-end developer. JavaScript and jQuery. Another important tool for front-end developers is JavaScript. If you are trying to implement interactive features in your website, such as audio and video, games, scrolling abilities, page animations, etc., JavaScript is the tool that you need to know. JavaScript consists of libraries like jQuery, etc. jQuery is basically a collection of plugins and extensions that make it faster and easier to run JavaScript on your website. jQuery takes common tasks that require multiple lines of JavaScript code and compresses them into a format that can be executed with a single line. Frameworks. As front-end developers, it is very important that you have sound knowledge of frameworks and libraries such as Angular, React, Vue, etc. These frameworks and libraries allow you to start off your application with a lot of JavaScript code present in it rather than starting off with an empty text document. Responsive design. We use different gadgets like computers, phones, and tablets to look at web pages. The web pages adjust themselves to the device you're using without any extra effort from your end. This is because of its responsive design. It's an intrinsic part of CSS frameworks like Bootstrap. Version control. Version control is the process of tracking and controlling changes to your source code. It's a tool that you can use to track the changes made previously so that you can go back to the previous version of your work and find out what went wrong without tearing the whole thing down. Testing and debugging. A front-end developer must possess the skill and ability to test and debug codes. There are different testing methods for web development. Functional testings. Functional testing looks at a particular piece of functionality on your site and ensures it does everything according to the code. Unit testing, on the other hand, is a method that tests the smallest bit of code and examines it individually for correct operation. Testing is a big part of front-end development, and there are various frameworks that you can make use of. Browser developer tools. Browser developer tools usually consist of an inspector and a JavaScript console. The inspector allows you to see what CSS is associated with each element on the page and also allows you to edit the HTML and CSS and see the changes live as they happen. Web performance. It is important to make sure that your website performs smoothly without any glitch. Web performance defines the amount of time that it takes for your website to load. Programs like Grunt and Gulp can be used to automate image optimization, CSS and JavaScript minifying, and other web performance goals. It helps in making your website more efficient. CSS Pre-Processing. CSS Pre-Processing is an advanced version of CSS. This is used to enhance the primary class of CSS to create better versions of the website. It is not just a language to improve the styling elements, but it helps the developers to skip tasks like writing CSS selectors and color strings frequently. Command line. GUI is an important part of web development and coding as well. But an all-purpose GUI is going to have its limitations for some specific applications. Sometimes you may need to open a terminal on your computer where you can enter typed commands or command lines to get your work done. Although majority of the work is done through a GUI, you can add serious cred to your front-end skills if you have a mastery of the command line. Okay, so these were some of the technical skills required for front-end developers. Now let's move on and take a look at the skills that are required for back-end development. The back-end layer forms a dynamic connection between the front-end and the database. To get this layer working, it's important that you know at least one of the programming languages like Python, Java, PHP, Ruby, etc., and also have knowledge of server-side frameworks like Node.js, etc. Python is an open-source object-oriented programming language that was released in the year 1991, and ever since it has become one of the most favorite languages of software developers and web developers. Java is an open-source high-level programming language which was released by Sun Microsystems in 1996. It follows the write once, run anywhere approach that makes it compatible to run on any platform. PHP is an open-source server-side scripting language used to develop the back-end logic of an application. It is a powerful tool for making dynamic and interactive websites. Node.js is an open-source JavaScript framework used specifically for creating the back-end or the server side of an application. Through Node.js, JavaScript can now finally run the server side of the web. Data and database. The data layer is a massive warehouse of information. It contains a database repository that captures and stores information from the front end through the back end. A prerequisite is to have knowledge of how the data is stored, edited, retrieved, etc. An understanding of databases such as MySQL, MongoDB, etc. is a must. MySQL is an open source relational database management system that provides multi-user access and supports multi-storage engines. MongoDB is known for its ease of use and its quickness in handling a large amount of data. It is an open source object-oriented NoSQL database which is highly scalable and is efficient in handling unstructured data. Server setup. To make a website accessible publicly on the internet, it needs to be installed on the server. Once you have your domain name and the server space, it's time to set up the site on the server. The first thing is to direct the domain name to the server's unique IP address. Then you need to set up website files and finally the database and other configurations. Deployment tools. To get files from your own computer up to the server, you need a protocol. This is basically a method of transporting files or other data to and from a server. The deployment tool stores your HTTP or SFTP settings, and when a change is pushed in Git to the master branch, the tool will transfer the files for you. So there is no need to remember which files you changed, thereby reducing the number of mistakes you make. Okay, so those were the skills that are required for backend developers. Now let's take a look at the skills that are required for full stack web development. A full stack web developer must know how to create and maintain the front end and the back end of an application and must also be proficient with various languages used to develop web applications. Some of the important skills that are required for full stack developers are an in-depth understanding of working with system infrastructure, web and communication protocols like HTTP, TCP/IP, etc. They should be skilled in